What's up, everybody? I got a crazy hard hat hair electrician talk for you all. I wanted to talk today about aging in the trades. I started in the trades when I was 21, and I am now 27. And having been in the trade at the beginning, I was very much so of a mentality of like, wow, like no one sees your worth. You really have to prove yourself. So like I'd grab an extra bundle of conduit. I would grab as many things as I could to not waste a trip and make things really efficient. I was also in service at the time, so that was like really the culture. I now work for a company where safety is more baked into the everyday life or workflow. And every morning there's a powwow where there's a stretch and flex, and there's slogans that the company talks about, like walking is working and slow is fast, in terms of production. And that's something that's kind of more baked in, but as a general note, an overtone of construction is that you need to be efficient and quick and know what you're doing. So it can be very easy to say, like, forget something and you have to do a second trip. But I think that as you get older in the trade, I think that making a plan for every single physical move that you make is definitely something that you should really start to consider. Like I was saying, at the beginning of all this, I would, do all these things to sort of prove like that, I had value in like material gathering if I couldn't, understand the work. So I'd like run for material and stuff and all these different things. But I just wanted to kind of show that I recently hurt my back like pretty bad. I had just been told that there was a underground set of stub ups that needed to get their strut rack adjusted up, and we had just taken off all the strut straps, but all the conduits were sort of bending in, and so it was sort of sandwiching the strut in a way that was very hard to push up. So in order to knock it loose, I could have had one guy take a long piece of like shallow strut and sort of pry open the effect that the conduits were having, where they were kind of coming in, and try to spread them out so it'd be easier to lift the strut up. But just trying to do things fast, I just did a sort of like very rushed movement where I was just like pulling up on like doing a deadlift basically with the strut, and I didn't think anything of it. It was kind of a jerky motion, but I just did it and got it up to the height that it needed to be, and then I leaned over to grab a strut strap, and I felt something in my back just like give way, and I was at maybe a 45-degree angle trying to grab this strut strap off the ground, and I felt like I was paralyzed. And I felt like I was like a second away from falling head first on my face into the dirt, so I then had to spend about a week's time just recovering. And so just as a general aside, in construction, your body is like the physicality of what you do is undeniable. And so like if you think about your like muscular strength and your like flexibility and your whole general like state of health with your body, it is of the utmost importance. Like if you trip and fall and hit your leg, you're out of work. Like you can't work with like a broken foot, you can't work with an injured back, you can't do any of that. So maintaining your body is probably the most important advice that someone who actually wants to make money in the trade could receive. Like for instance, you're not about to go and buy all these tools and get all into this debt and then be screwing around not thinking about what you're doing, and then you fall over in an underground ditch or something and break your leg or sprain something or tear a muscle. If that happens, you're out of work, you don't really have a fallback, and because you don't have a fallback, really, because you've kind of been in construction your whole time, like, you're in a pretty insecure sort of situation. So I just kind of wanted to point that out, that, like, framing your mentality about your health is, like, the most important thing in construction that you should be thinking about. Like, getting enough sleep so that you make good decisions at work, as well as like eating healthy so that you don't like get like muscular cramps or anything like that, or muscle strain or fatigue or heat stroke or things like all of those things. Maintaining those things are so incredibly important if you want to actually be in this thing for a while and actually get to that point that reach the peak of that like money-making peak that you're going to reach. If you get to that point, then that's going to be great. But if you go in, you spend all this money on tools, you spend all this money on a truck if you want to go that route, and then you get physically injured before you can really prove yourself at work, you're not really going to have like a foreman position where you can just sit down and bark orders. So you need that physicality for a very long time. So, like, I don't know if any of you have ever watched Larry Hahn videos. He was a carpenter all throughout like the 70s and 80s and 90s, and he has like a series about framing and stuff. And this guy is like doing stick framing with just like a hammer and nails, and this guy is like driving nails in like with one tap to set the nail, and then he drives the thing in with either one hit or two hits. And he's like 80 years old in this video, and the guy is like honestly a remarkable testament to someone who's actually like living proof of keeping at that and staying working their whole life. But just a lot of people are not in that sort of zone. And hopefully none of us are working at 80 like that. I hope a lot of us get our money with what we're looking for in construction and then are able to get out and do what they actually want to do. But just keep that in mind. Like, there's going to be a grind when you're going for about 4 or 5 years where you're like hardly ever going to get recognized. And you cannot get injured in that time. If you get injured in that time, you're not going to ever see that peak of the money that you can bring in. Overtime, when you're making like $16 an hour, is somewhat nice, but overtime when you're making 30s or even $40 an hour is like actually worth your time finally. So, that's something just to consider. Like, you have to keep your body in good shape. So I don't mean to beat that topic to a pulp, but it is a very important way to frame your mind. If you think, like, if you're on the other side of 25, it's time that you start thinking about this stuff, because you can't just rely on your youth. I think a lot of people will not really think about working out, but it's something that I personally am going to start to prioritize for sure. It's something that I've always had goals with, but never really followed through because of this, that, and the other. But going forward, I am going to be definitely at least hitting the gym with all muscle groups at least 3 times a week, or at least, going to the gym 3 times a week. And I think that's almost a necessity, because if you don't like work out your like your back, you're asking for a total like catastrophe to happen. So like working out your shoulders is something that in electrical you do a lot of strange movements overhead that involve a lot of shoulder strength. you carry a lot of stuff for long distances and only on one shoulder, so having a really strong back, is really important. Or maybe even building up your traps. You have to carry things a lot. Your grip strength is something that you're going to test all the time with carrying large bundles of things, large amounts of material all scooped up in your arms. So yeah, physicality is definitely something you should start considering actually doing something about in your everyday life. In school, it was kind of something that was just put on us. I was in school with the Obama administration, and you were supposed to do 30 minutes of physical activity the entire time in gym. So you actually had that baked into your everyday. But if you don't keep up with these things, they're gonna eventually start showing up as injuries if you don't address these things. So that's one thing. The other note that I want to make on this is just having a plan for everything. And I sort of touched on this earlier, but if you're just bending at the waist or something and grabbing stuff, you're putting a lot of strain, especially while wearing a belt. You're putting a lot of strain by stretching out the back muscles, and then also by having a tool belt wrapped around you. There's a concentric wrapping force that sort of, as an extra amount, elongates the muscle. And so I think that's what happened to me. Is I had my tool belts on, and I just bent over at the waist to grab something, and I think something just gave way. So nobody has money for doctor's visits, especially in the United States. The costs of caring for your health are astronomical in this country. And so really the best advice I could give someone is just to start thinking about their physical health, and also make a plan for anything physical that you do. A lot of companies now have something called safety pre-task plans or daily pre-task plans, but just I know that that's paperwork and stuff, but it honestly, as you age, is exceptionally important. And if you have to fight that urge that you started off with, where you're doing extra and working harder has given me results, but as you age, you can't just do that all the time. So just have a plan for everything. If you're going to be carrying a box, test the weight of that box. Try to keep it low and close to your body. If you can get a person, I know a lot of people don't like asking for help, but just get another person to help you carry something. If there's a concern for it being an awkward movement, or if it's just over a weight capacity that you feel comfortable carrying, just get another person. Another thing too, I've heard that in a lot of safety meetings about trips and falls, that a lot of trips and falls happen from something in a different plane of only 3/8 of an inch of what you're currently walking on, as being the greatest cause of trips and falls. So just be aware, don't roll your ankle. A lot of companies say that you have to have an 8-inch what's it called, a tongue on your boot, so it goes past your ankle, so there's a bit more rigidity between the ankle and your femur. This is wrapping around that area, so your ankle can't twist as easily. So having boots like that is something that can help a lot. Having a boot that has basically a high heel on it, that has a raised heel, can help you continue to have the arch in your foot, so that you can continue to walk long term. That's something to consider, because otherwise you're just going to be raw dogging your tendons in your feet over time, and they might collapse over time, especially if you don't walk a lot. So having a raised heel can help with that. Other things too are maybe you can definitely start squatting. You need to, I know a lot of guys do not worry about their legs, but over time, you might pull a muscle. If you don't use your glute muscles or anything like that, you might pull a muscle in your glute because you never use that stuff, and then here you are moving some gear and you have to like push your body against this thing, and you're like using a crazy amount of strength in your legs, but you don't train your legs, so it's like very easy if you're not used to muscle movements to pull a muscle. So like working out like every muscle group and knowing how in your trade, and I'm specifically talking to electricians, like the things that we do, you know, knowing those muscle groups that we use and, you know, are going to require a lot of like physicality for, is something that I would highly recommend incorporating into your training. Like I've had so many different contortion type things that I've been told that I needed to do in order to like install stuff. Like I've had sort of like soffits that you're supposed to install LED track in, and you can't even get close to that little nook that the soffit is in without like basically breaking your back. And so like I have to have like insane core strength and able to do this and not like potentially have a hernia. Like if the muscle in your abdomen is not like, is too thin, you know, the chances of your intestines literally poking through, that's what a hernia is, like increases, especially if you have like a hard sort of like muscular like load that you're putting on it and you're not trained in that. You know, it's very easy that those muscle fibers will just go, and that is, you know, a catastrophic sort of thing that could happen to you. So like lifting like compound movements like bench, deadlift, and squat, and like working on your core and working on like your obliques and working on your shoulders and working on your grip strength is something that is incredibly like important. And I just want to put that out there for if anybody's experiencing how things don't work like they used to. You know, there's a bunch of other things that could be brought into this conversation, but just wanted to talk about aging and being in the trade. Just remember that your body is like literally the only reason you have this job. Like at the end of the day, a lot of people say like, oh, I know this, I have this experience, but like apprentices add an insane amount of value to a job site. Like just having a body there and like the physicality of you is something that these older guys probably won't admit that they need out of young guys, but the industry would literally not, like, especially with how people care for their health in the United States, the industry would literally fall apart without young guys being in the trade, you know, giving their bodies to like this construction effort. It's a really weird way to phrase it, but like it's really true. Like you literally are like breaking your body down for this goal. And so like it is a large demand on your body that you're asking it to do for this work. And so you have to start thinking about it long term. Like, can I do this shit in my late 30s? Can I do this shit when I'm in my 40s? Like, is that, like, if this is all I've got going on, can I continue to do this? And if you cannot answer that question, you know, confidently, like, you need to start having a plan for every body movement that you do at work, and you also need to actually stick to a physical like plan to, you know, train your body for these things, so like muscle movements aren't like something that you can't expect and will trip you up and hurt you. So just wanted to give some insight in that topic as someone who's sort of been in it for a minute and has recently experienced an injury. I've heard of many more stories of people getting hurt, and as a general rule, just have a mindset of protecting yourself. Don't ever don't ever daydream or wander off with what you're doing. Like the littlest things could have the most crazy consequences if you are not paying attention. So just wanted to talk today about that topic. I hope you all got something from it. I know if you feel exhausted after work, the last thing you want to do is add more things into the strain that you put on your body. But at the end of the day, it's the truth. And so I hope this helps someone, and I'll catch you all in the next one.